Sarah Halmajan, and I'm going into 12th grade. So this is my Kingdom Worker card story. So my life before Jesus, I had a lot of anger in me and a lot of bitterness. I mean, I was raised in church and I came from a Christian upbringing. So honestly, that's kind of the reason why I am still a believer to this day, because I always had that positive upbringing. But there was a time where I had a rough patch with God and kind of with everything, and that was middle school for me. I had a lot of anger and bitterness in my heart towards anything, everything, and honestly, especially towards God, even though I was still going to church. But it was around 9th grade when things started to change for me, and I didn't even do anything. Honestly, God just did everything. He just started changing the way I was thinking, even the way I dressed and looked, the way I talked, just literally everything about me. And then I started to grow closer to Him, and it was especially because I had to go through some tough situations in 9th grade that pushed me closer to Him, and it made me realize that I can't do anything without Him and that I really do desperately need Him. So because of that, God started to change me to become more like Him. And honestly, ever since then, it's just been a continual upward growth towards God and getting closer to Him. And so now I'm happier than ever, and I'm completely different than how I used to be a few years ago. I mean, you can ask some of my friends that have known me since middle school, it's a night and day difference. And it's all because Jesus came in and He just showed me that it's not, the best way to live your life is not with anger and bitterness towards people and towards God, but to have humility and just trust in Him. And being a new creation in Him is what changes everything. So because of that, now I'm moving closer and closer to God every day. So that would be my testimony. And then there have been a lot of moments in my life that brought me closer to God and showed me new things about Him. And I would say one of those big moments was CIY Move. And especially my freshman year, I found my confidence there. So that was really cool. But last year, I picked up my Kingdom Worker card, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So there's a lot of weight and anticipation with opening your Kingdom Worker card because you don't know what you're going to get, and it can be kind of scary because you might get something that you don't think you can complete, or it might be too difficult. So there's definitely a bit of a risk factor with opening one, because if you open it and don't do it, then you kind of didn't complete the whole purpose of opening it. So before I opened mine this past year, I just prayed that God would give me the exact one that He wants me to have, the one that will push me closer to Him and will fulfill His calling for me in whatever way He wants to with that card. So I did that, and I took a few hours to actually open my Kingdom Worker card. And when I did, I kind of read it quickly. So it said, memorize Matthew 5-7. At first I thought it said 3 verses. So I was like, oh, that's 3 verses. That's so easy. So memorize Matthew 5-7. And then recite it in front of your youth group/small group, and then share your experience. So I was like, oh, that's so easy. It's just 3 verses, right? And then I reread it again, and I was like, no, that's 3 chapters. And then I realized it was the Sermon on the Mount when I pulled it up in my actual Bible. I was like, no way. I have to memorize the whole Sermon on the Mount, and then recite it, and then talk about it. So I was like, okay, this is definitely more than I thought. But I was just like, you know what, God, I prayed over this. You were the one that gave me this card, so you're going to help me complete this. So I was excited. I was like, all right, let's go. We're going to do this. So actually completing the card was a lot harder than I thought, because I thought it was going to be easy. Just read a little bit every night and then memorize it, repeat it over and over. But that was not easy because life kicks in, and then you get so tired that by the end of your day, you literally just want to go to bed, and you don't want to sit there and memorize 111 verses. So I actually kind of had to push off doing this for a while, because I would just get so overwhelmed by life that it was so hard for me to sit here and do this. But I can say by the grace of God, He helped me complete this challenge, and it's all because He just helped me to learn a little bit of discipline and just push through past the tiredness and past the weakness of not wanting to complete it. Or not that I didn't want to complete it, but just because it would just get so overwhelming sometimes. but he helped me, and I was able to complete it by the time I planned, and I got to recite the whole thing in front of my small group, and they were so supportive, and it was so cool. And now I know the whole Sermon on the Mount by heart, and it's kind of crazy because I didn't even know how many verses I had to memorize until my small group told me it was 111. I was like, there's no way I memorized that many. I didn't even realize. So it's just so cool because now I can just have the context of what it's saying in my mind all the time. And it's a really important passage. I mean, I learned so much from reading it. Like, in a nutshell, I would say it's basically just saying that you need to have humility. It all points back to humility because without that, you can't really be more like God because God is humble. I mean, the fact that he even came as Jesus to die for us is like, that just tells you everything. And just everything that Jesus says to do and how he says to live in the Sermon on the Mount is counterculture and counterintuitive. And it's not how we always want to act. Like, for example, being poor and broken in spirit, like that is not something that people want to do in this culture nowadays. So doing that helps you to have humility and get closer to God. And just honestly, everything the Sermon on the Mount says really just points to humility. And that's kind of what I got out of it in a nutshell. So it was definitely an experience doing this Kingdom Worker card, but I'm so glad that God gave me the strength to do it. And it was super cool to be able to do it. And I'm really excited to see what Kingdom Worker card God has for me this upcoming CIY.